Good evening. I'm 14 First Alert meteorologist Arden Gregory. This is a live look at the Evansville riverfront. It's been a very dreary, kind of gray, gloomy day across the tri-state. It's also been significantly cooler. Now, if you just look at the almanac for today, it doesn't look as chilly as it was. That's because, so for this whole week, we've had highs in the 80s, right? Then that cold front moved through this morning. Technically, today, our high temperature is 75 degrees. You may be thinking, it seemed a lot cooler than that. I don't remember it getting to 75. Well, it's because during the day, it didn't. 75 was our temperature at midnight last night. So technically, from midnight to midnight throughout the day on April 18th, the warmest temperature we saw was 75 degrees at midnight last night. So that's the official high for today. But by this morning, we had dropped back into the 60s. Then that cold front moved through and it just kept getting cooler as the day went on, and we were in the 50s this afternoon. Moving forward, high temperatures will be in the mid 60s the next couple of days, and then we'll start to warm things back up. But you can really feel the impact of that cold front today. It is currently 27 degrees cooler in Evansville than it was at this same time yesterday. So really all afternoon and evening, we've been running about 30 degrees cooler than we were yesterday, and it's all due to that cold front that moved through this morning. So that did bring widespread kind of soaking rain to the tri-state this morning. Then we continued to see lighter, more scattered showers sticking with us on into the afternoon and evening. And in fact, some of you still getting a few sprinkles out there right now. It's, this rain has been slowly pushing its way off to the east, but anywhere you see that green there, that's where we still have some very, very light rain falling. But again, it is down to just a sprinkle out there. Drier air is filtering in. All accounted for, we've picked up about a third to a half inch of rain in most locations. Evansville picked up 0.36 inches of rain. Radar estimates put much of the tri-state around a half inch. Then as you head farther to the northwest into places like Wayne and Hamilton counties in Illinois, may have seen closer to an inch up that way as you got some heavier rain and thunderstorms last night into very early this morning. Like I said, we still have a few sprinkles out there, but nearly the entire tri-state still under this blanket of clouds. That will all change as we go through the night tonight. So over the next couple of hours, those last few sprinkles will start to work their way off to the east, and then the clouds will gradually begin to clear as well as we go through the night tonight. By Sunday morning, we'll have blue skies and sunshine across the board, and then we've got a lot of sunshine in the forecast all day tomorrow with just a few passing clouds possible, mainly toward the end of the day as we get later into Sunday afternoon and evening. Overall, though, tomorrow will be mostly sunny. It is still going to be a little cooler, though. Our temperatures right now sitting in the upper 40s to low 50s. No major changes over the past few hours. We kind of got down into the 40s and 50s this afternoon and then just kind of held steady there through this evening. Overnight, though, our temperatures will continue to drop back through the 40s. We do have a change in our winds here. We've talked a lot this week about how wind direction drives our weather. And that's why we've been in the 80s all week long, is all week we've had this warm air flowing in from the south. But that cold front that moved through this morning, behind that our wind direction changed. And so now, while it is a very light breeze, it's not very windy out there. What wind we have had today has been coming from the northwest, pulling this colder, drier air into the tri-state. And as that continues through the night tonight, as that rain comes to an end and our skies begin to clear, our temperatures will drop back through the 40s tonight and eventually bottom out somewhere in the mid to upper 30s by early Sunday morning. Sunday then, as I said, mostly sunny, cool, but really pretty seasonable for this time of year. Our average high this time of year is about 69, and we'll fall just a couple degrees short of that tomorrow afternoon with high temperatures somewhere in the mid 60s. Tomorrow is also the final day of Tri-Fest in Henderson. If you're headed out to that, the community worship service starts at 10. Temperatures will be in the mid 50s at that time with plenty of sunshine. At noon, that's when the food and the rides all open up. Temperatures will be approaching 60 by then, and then we'll probably top out somewhere in the mid 60s tomorrow afternoon. Everything shuts down there in Henderson, the Tri-Fest coming to an end at 5 o'clock tomorrow. So good weather for that final day of Tri-Fest. Really, as we go through the rest of next week, then pretty quiet weather. I mentioned we've got highs in the mid 60s tomorrow and Monday. Tuesday, our wind direction changes again, and we know what a difference that can make. That wind starts to shift back around from the south, pulling that warmer air in. That plus mostly sunny skies will push us into the upper 70s Tuesday, Wednesday. I even think we'll hit the lower 80s on Thursday. I do think we've got another cold front on the way for the end of next week. We're still a week out. Timing's a little iffy, but right now it looks like probably sometime second half of the day, Friday. So we're talking probably Friday afternoon, Friday evening into Friday night, possibly lingering then into Saturday morning. We would have another round of rain coming through, and that would cool us down some, taking us from the 80s back into the 70s then as we head into next weekend. As of right now, not expecting any severe weather from that, but we could get a few rumbles of thunder on Friday. Checking in on the comments here. Good evening, Laura, Suzanne, Dawson Springs and Morganfield there. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Cheyenne. Jeff Miller had a little more than a half inch of rain in Savah. That's good to know, Jeff, that the radar was painting about a half inch of rain estimated in that area. So it seems like it was pretty close. Carolyn from Hobstadt, hello. Laura, I don't know that this is cool enough to qualify as a blackberry winter because it's not really winter-like temperatures. We've had instead almost like an early taste of summer here recently. This is what we're dealing with right now. This is where our temperatures really should be this time of year. We've gotten accustomed to these 80s here recently, but that's actually much warmer than average. So I wouldn't call it a blackberry winter because it's not that cold. For us to have a blackberry winter, I would expect that we would have, temperatures down below freezing at night and abnormally cold temperatures during the day, things like that. And William also saying about 0.45 inches by Bosse Field. At the end of the forecast here, as we were heading into all of this, if you watched Friday afternoon, we were predicting about a half inch of rain for most of the tri-state, and it said you could maybe get a little more if you got caught in a thunderstorm. So 0.45 seems actually pretty close to what we were expecting there, William. Good afternoon, Zach. All right, let's move forward a little bit here. We have had some questions, for example, about a blackberry winter. I have had questions recently about, are we done with frost? Are we done with freezing temperatures? And unfortunately, the answer is I can't tell you for sure. I would never rule out one last little cold snap here before we get into the warmer months, but this is the time of year where we typically see our final frost of the season. 36 degrees is about as warm as it can get and still end up with potential frost. So that's kind of what we look at as our basis for, was it cold enough to have potentially frosted? That kind of is what we count as our final frost of the season. The earliest we've ever had that last frost is March 25th, but we've had it as late as May 27th. Those are outliers, though. For it to happen that early or that late is very rare. On most years, and we've seen that here in the past 4 or 5 years, we typically see our final frost of the season somewhere right around April 19th, which is tomorrow. So this would be about the time that we usually kind of get our last little cold snap of the year. We are expected to get down to around 37 tonight, so that would track if that was kind of the last time our temperatures got this cold for the rest of this season. Typically by about this point in the year, you've got about a 45 to 50% chance of maybe getting one more frost in there. But really, once you start getting into May, that number drops dramatically. The general rule of thumb is that you're typically done with frost by about Mother's Day. Mother's Day obviously moves around the calendar a little bit. This year I think it's on the 10th, but still that gives you some idea that by early to mid-May we should be completely 100% definitely done with frost, but by this point in the year it's a very real possibility that we have already seen our last frost. We have probably seen our last freeze. Now again, never say never, especially in the tri-state, but The earliest we've ever had our last freeze is March 4th. The latest it has happened is May 10th. So we have had freezing temperatures into May before, but that's an extreme rarity. More often than not, we see our last freezing temperatures of the year sometime in the first week or two of April. And so odds are we are done with freezing temperatures. You really see a dramatic drop off as you get into the second half of April here, where all the way up through March and even the first bit of April, it's really pretty common to still have one or two more of those nights where you get down to freezing. But by about mid-April, that number drops dramatically. And although we have had freezing temperatures into May, it is extremely rare. By the end of April, you're down to just a 2% chance of seeing freezing temperatures looking at the climatological history. So the answer is we're probably done with frost. There's an even better chance that we're done with freezing temperatures, but really, I can't give you a guarantee until we get into the first week or two of May. That's when I would say, yes, we're definitely done. I would never rule out one more little cold snap somewhere here in the next couple of weeks, but we're not forecasting one right now. However, I will say it does seem like things are trending a little cooler for that final week of April, but that's more than a week away, so still a lot of uncertainty there. It's been very warm so far this April. Today, as I mentioned, that 75 kind of has an asterisk next to it because we had a midnight high today. So that 75 was the temperature at midnight. We've spent most of the day in the 60s and 50s. For these first 18 days of April here, count them up with me. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this whole week, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. 10 out of 18, more than half of the days so far in April, we've had highs in the 80s. That's not just a little warmer than normal, that's a lot warmer than normal. Our highs would typically be in the 60s this time of year. We've only had one day this month where our highs were actually in the 60s. I do think we'll finally get some 60s tomorrow and Monday, I should say. We did finally get some rain today. That was much needed. We got 0.36 inches of rain in Evansville today. That brings our total for the month up to 0.84. So we still haven't had an inch of rain yet this month, and typically by this point in April we would have had nearly 3 inches of rain. April is typically a pretty rainy time of year. More often than not, we're talking about rain or even thunderstorm chances this time of year. We're usually talking about river flooding this time of year. And instead, we're already talking about drought. That does concern me a little bit because it's not uncommon for us to get drought in the tri-state, but typically we're talking about drought in August, September, October, not April. So that is a little concerning that could lead to a worsening drought as we get into the summer months unless we really get some good soaking rainfall in here repeatedly over the next few weeks. Average temperature 11 degrees warmer than normal so far this April. So as I mentioned, drought is spreading and worsening the entire tri-state now, at least in abnormally dry conditions. That's kind of the precursor, that step one in drought forming. But parts of Illinois and Kentucky are already in moderate or even severe drought, and we are not the only ones dealing with this. They have extreme or even exceptional drought in other parts of the country. That exceptional, that's the highest possible category for drought, and they have that right now in Colorado and Arkansas, down into southern Georgia and into the panhandle of Florida. And I will say the farmers down into Arkansas, Georgia, and Florida where they're having that exceptional drought, they are really struggling because they're trying to plant right now and the ground is so dry you can't even get the seeds to germinate. I mean, they can't even get their plants in the ground right now. So really concerning to have that kind of drought, like I said, especially in the spring, which is typically when you have so much rain. Typically this time of year, farmers would be saying, we're having trouble getting out in the fields. You know, there's just so much rain, you can't catch a dry day to get out and get planted. Instead, they're saying the ground is so dry we can't get planted. So that is concerning to me that we're seeing not just drought, but drought at this time of year. Moving forward, while tomorrow and Monday we've got those highs in the 60s, what we've been looking for, normal for April, but it doesn't last. We warm right back up. We've got highs in the upper 70s and low 80s from about Tuesday to Friday of next week. We do have that cold front moving in Friday into Saturday. Looks like we'll get some rain and then some cooler temperatures moving in behind that. The extended outlook for that final week of April is showing a trend back toward below average temperatures. So that's why I'm not guaranteeing yet that we're totally done with frost. We may see one more little cold snap here at the end of the month. It's also showing a trend toward above average precipitation for that final week of April. Now that's some good news, because rain is something we could certainly use, and so could the folks down to our south. I mentioned that exceptional drought in Arkansas. Well, from about Henderson, Owensboro, stretching down to the south and west there, that area highlighted in green, that's an area that's been outlooked for the potential for heavy precipitation from sometime Sunday, April 26th to Tuesday, April 28th. So somewhere in that window. So that is something that, again, we'll be monitoring. So that would be the beginning of the following week. So just beyond the 7-day forecast here. So it's possible that we could maybe get back-to-back cold fronts, something like that, where you get a round of rain and a cool down, then another round of rain and another cool down that would drop our temperatures even further for that final week of April. So again, it's just kind of speculating at this point. That's more than a week away, but it is something that we're keeping our eye on. For the next few days at least, though, the weather fairly quiet. You know, we had this gray, gloomy Saturday. We needed the rain, but I know it did literally rain on some parades out there. We had, you know, Tri-Fest, and we had 5Ks going on, a lot of proms happening tonight, people trying to take pictures outside, and we were stuck with this gray, gloomy, rainy Saturday, but it was beneficial rainfall. It was rain that we really needed. Moving forward now, mostly sunny, kind of cool through the next couple of days. Like I said, we'll probably start tomorrow morning in the upper 30s, and then we'll climb into the mid 60s again on Monday. Then that wind direction changes, upper 70s to low 80s then through the rest of this week. Cold front moves through sometime Friday into Saturday. Looks like it might be overnight, Friday night into Saturday morning. That does bring us some rain. Timing's still a little iffy, but right now it's looking like probably sometime from Friday afternoon through Saturday morning. You can tell I'm not used to still being up talking this late at night. Sometime Friday afternoon through Saturday morning is when we'll probably get the rain and the cold front, and that would then also cool us back down into the 70s then. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'll have one more look at your forecast on 14 News tonight at 10, and then Chief Meteorologist Jeff Lyons will be filling in tomorrow. Michael Fecca is getting a well-deserved weekend off, so Jeff will be here tomorrow with a look at your forecast then. So I hope you'll tune back in, and again, we'll be keeping an eye on the end of this week and the start of next week. That seems to be our next chance of any kind of active weather, and so between now and then, just get out and enjoy the sunshine. Everybody have a great night and a great rest of your weekend.